this video. Again, I'm taking a inside road to really develop the subject. You can see how the cars are no longer sounding in the background. This video is basically about strong economies and bad economies in Europe. So, for example, I started off in Spain, and then I came to England. And I think the saying is that if you're in Spain, you're wealthy, then you're good. If you're not, you're kind of screwed, so you have to go to England or something. And this is true also for Italy, and it's true for Greece. And it seems like the Mediterranean economies are just, when I say Mediterranean, I'm really talking about Greece, Spain, and Italy. They're just not doing as well. France is doing slightly better. France has a tendency to not really have that much of people trying to move out to try to have a better standard of living. But for example, in Spain, like a lot of the young population, it's really hard for them to get a job. Like, I mean, I could tell when I was there. I would just call, and immediately they refer me to the website, but they didn't even want to talk. So this really means that people just don't have a lot of jobs available. It's just not a strong economy. And one of the main reasons this happens is because as comparable to some countries in Latin America or Africa or even Southeast Asia, when governments are corrupt, there's no foreign investment. So when there's no foreign investment, there's not a large tech sector, there's not a large financial sector. So a lot of the economies are just based on just usually hospitality, and they're based on agriculture, just substantial economies. But anybody who will try to set up business there with a large enterprise, they're likely to be scared that the government will end up seizing a lot of your resources. And I mean, if you look at it, this makes sense. Costa Rica, my country, has a relatively large, for its size, it has a relatively large amount of foreign investment. There's a mini Silicon Valley, like people call Guadalajara the Silicon Valley of Mexico, and they call Tel Aviv the Silicon Valley of Israel, and then some people will call Berlin the Silicon Valley of Europe. It depends on how you look at it. But there's a Zona Franca in San Jose that's like the little Silicon Valley of Costa Rica, which has a lot of the companies, especially a lot of customer service departments, but also large companies like Intel. So going back to the economies, Spain and Greece, for example, have received a large amount of bailouts, and it's to the best interest of all Europeans that Spain remains part of the Union. It's a very important geopolitical place because it phases out into Africa. It faces a lot of the Atlantic, but it's also a prime holiday destination for a lot of Europeans. So Spain, being where it is right now, it's a lot of the main infrastructure was rebuilt by the European Union. It wasn't really built by Spanish. It was built by mostly European Union funding. And smaller economies like Holland and Belgium are doing relatively well. They have low, as opposed to Spain or Greece, they have much lower unemployment. And then And then you start looking into Germany, which is really the economic powerhouse of Europe, Switzerland, which has a very strong financial sector. It's and a lot of the northern economies are doing relatively well. Like the northern economy, I mean, you could really look at it in a spectrum, like England being the most capitalistic, and maybe a country like Sweden being the most socialistic, because they have the highest taxes and the strongest amount of government intervention, to the point of, for example, in Norway, they would give people drugs for them to have them, instead of them breaking into houses, causing mischief, causing grief. So it's just better, like, if they're gonna just get high on some drug, why it does not have the state and the people, the public funds pay for it, because it's really gonna make everybody else better off just by investing a little bit on these people. This is, if you look at it, this sounds crazy, but it's really how things are done in socialistic countries. The other interesting thing about those countries, and I really haven't been there, I have a strong interest in getting to know them,